If you've ever walked into a $5 million mountain home and thought, wow, this is incredible. And then you opened up one random closet door and immediately thought, oh no, this place is held together by vibes. You already understand why I have what my clients jokingly call the Anthony test. Because here's the truth, in the $2 million to $10 million range, you're not just buying a house, you're buying a lifestyle, a maintenance profile, a neighborhood personality, and whether you like it or not, a future set of problems you either planned for or you didn't. I'd rather you plan for them. So quick question for you before we get into it. When you picture your family's legacy home in the mountains, are you imagining privacy and quiet, village vibes, walkability, skiing, or something more like, I want a snowmobile on my back door, straight into the national forest and not see another human until lunch? The Anthony test always starts there. I'll tell you why in a second. If we haven't met, I'm Anthony Soul. I'm a Colorado licensed realtor, and I've been selling real estate in Summit County and Eagle County for 7 years. I live this mountain life with my wife and our kiddo, and when I'm not working, I'm usually skiing, biking, hiking, or finding the best food I can in the mountains, or doing my best impression of a normal person who totally isn't thinking about real estate all the time. My style is education first, so my job isn't to sell you a house, it's to find you a home for the life you actually want to live here in the mountains of Colorado, and ultimately avoid the kind of regret that doesn't show up on closing day, but shows up 6 months later when the snow starts flying sideways. So here's the Anthony test in plain English. I'm trying to figure out whether the home you're excited about will still feel amazing when it's not a vacation fantasy and it's just real life. When it's dark at 4:30, when your guests arrive at the same time a storm hits, when the driveway is buried, when something mechanical fails at the worst possible time, which in the mountains is basically always on a holiday weekend. So that's the test. And step one isn't the home, step one is you. Start by asking you lifestyle questions that are almost never in the Zillow notes. For example, do you want privacy where you can actually breathe and feel like it's your own slice of Colorado? Or do you want village vibes where you can park the car and forget it even exists? Do you want true ski in, ski out access? Or is 5 minutes to the lift totally fine if the home checks the other boxes? Or are you thinking, we want to step outside, hop on trails, bike, hike, and let the kids roam without it being a production? Because once we're honest about that, the search gets 10 times easier. If you tell me you want quiet and privacy, but we keep touring places that are basically on top of the village, I'm not doing you any favors. And if you tell me you want walkability and energy, but we're touring a home where your closest neighbor is a moose and your closest restaurant is half an hour away, it might sound romantic until you're hungry and it's snowing. After lifestyle, step 2 is neighborhoods. This is where a lot of buyers, especially out-of-state buyers, accidentally go backwards. They fall in love with a kitchen or view, and then later realize the neighborhood doesn't fit their day-to-day. I'm the opposite. I'd rather we pick the right lifestyle zone first, then the right neighborhood, then the right home. Because you can remodel a house, not remodel where it sits. And you definitely can't remodel your drive time on a Saturday in peak ski season. Once we land on the right neighborhood, then we can get into the actual home. And I do what I call the top-down reality check. I'm looking at the property like a future owner who wants this to be smooth, not stressful. I start outside because the outside tells me the truth first. If I walk up and the curb appeals rough, stained siding that's been cooked by the sun, peeling paint, roof shingles, that's not just aesthetics, that's a pattern. Because if an owner isn't taking care of the exterior, there's a decent chance they're not taking care of the interior systems either. And mountain homes are not forgiving when you ignore them. They don't age gracefully, they age aggressively, especially with the sun and the mountain conditions. Then I walk inside, and the same rule applies. I'm hunting for signs of how the home has been treated. In the mountains, especially, you see it fast. Ski gear, boots, wet stuff, adventure stuff. If there's no mudroom setup, no obvious place for gear, no smart flow from garage to living space, you'll often see the evidence. Skis leaned against walls, dings around door frames, baseboards that look like they got into a fight with a snowboard edge. I'm not judging anyone's lifestyle, but if you're buying at this level, I want to see that the home has been respected. The little dings don't scare me as much as what they represent. Now, if the home passes the care test, Then I get more direct about the motivation and the story. Why is the seller selling? And I'm not looking for gossip, I'm looking for context. In Colorado, sellers are required to disclose known adverse material facts, and that is found in the seller's property disclosure. In a perfect world, it's completed up front and it's transparent. Sometimes it's not provided until you're under contract, but either way, I'm paying attention to how open and transparent they are. We ask basic questions and the answers are vague or inconsistent. That's a red flag because transparency matters, and the higher the price point, the more you're buying risk management as much as you're buying lifestyle. Now, one of the biggest things I'm trying to figure out is whether the home has been owner maintained or managed by a professional property manager. And neither is automatically better, but the outcome is ultimately what matters. I've seen owners who are meticulous, like borderline heroic about maintenance, and those are the best, right? I recently had a deal where the inspection report came back with 3 items. 3. I almost framed it. That's rare, but it happens, and when it does, it's a green flag that the home has been loved properly. But I've also seen second and third homes where the owners are busy, they're out of state, they're not here often, and things slip naturally. In that case, I want to know who was watching the house. Were they doing monthly checks? Were they keeping humidity in check? Were they looking for roof issues? Were they handling snow management consistently? Because a mountain home that sits unattended is like leaving a boat in the ocean and just hoping the ocean respects your schedule. Hint, it will not. Then I go into the paperwork and the reality checks that most buyers don't do until it's too late. Tax records are a big one. I can't tell you how often marketing numbers and actual records don't match perfectly. And sometimes it's innocent, and sometimes it's creative. I had a listing appointment where the home was being pitched as 11,000 square feet. It had been on the market for a little while and listed with other realtors. Tax records clearly showed 8,900 square feet. The extra square footage was garage and unfinished areas. Now, can a big garage be valuable? Absolutely. Can unfinished space be future opportunity? Sure. But price per square foot matters psychologically to buyers at this level, even if they don't admit it. And a discrepancy that big changes the conversation. I want you making decisions with accurate information, not brochure math. While I'm in the records, I'm looking at ownership history. How often has this home changed hands? Did someone buy it and immediately list it? Was it held long term? Is there a pattern of short stays that might suggest a hidden issue or just a mismatch in expectations? I'm also looking at loan history when it's available because it helps frame negotiating posture. Do they own it outright? Is it leverage? Is there pressure? None of that guarantees a better deal, obviously, but it gives us a more intelligent strategy when it comes to negotiate. Now, let's talk about one of the most underrated parts of the buyer experience in Colorado, the contract protection. Colorado's contract is generally very buyer-friendly, especially around inspections. If you go under contract and let's say during the inspection period, you find something unsatisfactory in your sole subjective discretion, which is what it says in the contract, you can terminate before the inspection deadline and you can take your earnest money back. For those of you who don't know, earnest money is basically your good faith deposit to show the seller you're serious. It's not meant to be a donation, it's meant to be a commitment with guardrails. And I always make sure buyers understand this because it changes how you feel emotionally, right? You don't have to feel trapped. You can move forward confidently, knowing that if the home reveals something that makes it no longer the right fit, you can step away. Now, there is a good faith clause. You can't go intending to be shady, right? But you also don't need to ignore reality just because you got excited. Excitement is great, but regret is expensive. After that, I zoom out again because here's the thing. Sometimes the home is fine, but land and neighborhood are actual risk, right? This is where legacy buyers can accidentally get burned if they don't dig. And for example, I had a buyer looking at a lot in Breckenridge perched above the neighborhood with insane views, right? Fired up. He's like, this is it. This is the one. I can build my dream. And then I did what I always do, and I checked the neighboring parcels. Turns out the town of Breckenridge owned the lot directly below his. At the moment, it wasn't being used, but towns change, right? Housing needs change, policies change. And I told him, look, today this view is incredible, but if the town decides that lot is appropriate for workforce housing later, what does that do to the value of your lot? It doesn't mean workforce housing is bad. It means it may not align with what he wanted for a quiet, long-term legacy home. And so your neighbors and your surroundings absolutely matter. And it's my job to help you think a few steps ahead. I also look at town and county plans when they're available because Summit and Eagle do a decent job overall of protecting natural space, but every area has nuance. And in resort markets, land use decisions can change the feel of a neighborhood faster than people expect. And I mean like way faster than most people expect. Now, there are a few more quiet killers in mountain properties that don't show up in a staged photo. One is access and winter usability. It sounds basic, but it's huge. Can you get to the home easily in heavy snow? Is the driveway grade reasonable? Is it long and steep enough that you'll be doing the Colorado shuffle every time friends visit? Where you tell them, look, just park at the bottom and I'll come get you. I don't think that's sustainable. That might be totally fine if you want privacy, right? But it needs to be a conscious decision and not a surprise. I'm also thinking about sunlight exposure. Does the driveway get sun, or is it a permanent ice ring from November to April? And people underestimate this, and then they have to live with it every day. Another big one is documentation, permits, improvements, especially in mountain towns. Owners sometimes do upgrades over the years, such as hot tubs, decks, expansions, finished basements. And the question is, was it permitted properly? Again, I'm not trying to be the fun police. I'm trying to avoid you inheriting a compliance issue or an insurance headache later. But when you're buying at this level, you want the improvements to be real value, not value until you go to sell. And then there's the HOA and rules questions. Even if a home is perfect, an HOA can make or break the lifestyle depending on what you want. Some HOAs are fantastic and keep the neighborhood pristine. They handle common areas, they maintain values. Others can be incredibly restrictive in ways that matter if you want flexibility. So I like to review HOA documents early when possible. I want to understand what you do, what you can't do, what fees look like, and whether there are any big planned assessments coming that could change your ownership costs or maybe even eat into your equity. And finally, I'm always thinking about the ownership ease factor, we'll call it. Does the home have the right systems for being a second home? Is it set up for lock and leave? Do we have smart home monitoring? Because legacy homes aren't just bought, they're stewarded, right? The best legacy homes are the ones that don't create drama. They create memories for you and your family. So when you put all this together, the Anthony test is basically a filter designed to protect you from two things: buying the wrong lifestyle and inheriting hidden stress. It's why I start with your family's vibe and I work backward from there. If we find the perfect house, but the neighborhood doesn't fit you, I'm not going to push you into it. And if we find the perfect neighborhood, but the home has red flags that suggests it's going to become a maintenance project, I'm going to tell you that too. Because if you're spending $2 million, $5 million, $10 million, this should feel exciting, right? It should not feel like you bought yourself a part-time job. So in conclusion, if you're looking in the Colorado mountains and you want a calm, thorough process where you know what you're buying before you commit, call, text, or email me. You'll talk with me or a member of my team at Live Sotheby's International Realty, and we'll start with the lifestyle questions first. And then we'll apply the Anthony test to the neighborhoods and the properties that fit. That's how you buy a legacy home with confidence instead of crossing your fingers. And finally, I'll end with a question for you to drop in the comments because I love seeing how different families think about this. What matters more to you in a $2 million to $10 million mountain home? Being walkable to the action or having enough privacy that your biggest neighbor concern is whether the elk are going to eat your landscaping again? Thank you guys for watching this week's video, and I will see you in the next one.